There's a quiet truth that no one talks about after 70, you don't need more people in your life, you need more peace in your soul. Let me tell you a story, it's about a man named Walter, 71 years old. Widower. No children. Lives alone in a small, sunlit cottage at the edge of town. Most people looked at him with pity. Poor guy, they'd whisper, he must be so lonely. But Walter wasn't lonely. Every morning, he brewed his own coffee, read a worn-out copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and took long walks under the trees. His days were quiet, his heart full. He didn't chase after visitors. He didn't scroll endlessly looking for attention, he simply was, and he was happy. You see, we've been sold a lie, that being alone equals being broken, that silence is something to fear, that if you don't have a circle of friends in your 70s, you're failing at life. But what if I told you, that solitude is not a punishment, it's a gift? After 70, your soul starts speaking in a different language. It doesn't want noise, it doesn't need endless chatter, it craves something deeper, clarity, stillness, truth. And sometimes, the path to truth begins when you stop needing everyone else. Let's be real, how many of those friends from your younger years really saw the real you? How many understood your pain? How many stayed through your silence? Not just your stories. The world tells you to fear being alone, but what the world won't say is that loneliness is not about the absence of people, it's about the absence of connection to yourself. There are people in crowded rooms, surrounded by friends, still crying themselves to sleep, and there are elders like Walter, sitting quietly under a tree, who haven't felt lonely in years, because once you learn to love your own company, you stop begging the world to fill a space that was never empty to begin with. So if you're over 70 and alone, don't panic, don't feel ashamed, don't let society's fear become your story. You're not broken, you're becoming whole. We live in a world that worships connection. They tell you, you need a tribe, a support system, a circle of friends. But no one ever warns you that sometimes, the very people you hold close, are the ones quietly draining your soul. Let's go back to Walter for a moment. Years ago, before he found his peace, Walter had a regular Thursday lunch group, for men. Same booth. Same jokes, they talked politics. Argued about sports, laughed a little. Complained a lot, and every Thursday, Walter went home feeling tired, not physically, spiritually. It took him years to realize something powerful. Not all friendships are good for you. Not all connections lift you up. Some exist only because of guilt, habit, obligation. You see, after 70, something strange happens. You begin to see through people, not out of bitterness, but because your time becomes precious. You've survived heartbreak, loss, betrayal. Your intuition sharpens. You start to notice who talks at you, and who listens to you, who respects your silence, and who fills it with noise. And then you face a truth that's hard to admit. Some of the friendships you've kept are just chains with smiles attached. You stay because it's polite. You answer calls because it's expected. You sit in conversations that go nowhere, out of fear that walking away might make you look cold. But let me tell you something. From one soul to another, peace is worth more than polite discomfort. If being around someone consistently drains your energy, if you feel smaller after seeing them, not bigger, then that is not a friendship, that is a weight. You are not selfish for choosing your well-being. You are not antisocial for outgrowing people. You are evolving. You are learning that friendship without depth is just noise in disguise. And here's the twist, most people won't understand when you start pulling away, because they were never listening to the real you anyway. That's okay, let them go, let the conversations fade, let the phone ring, because when you stop chasing shallow connections, you begin to build a relationship far more powerful, the one with yourself. The world might call it isolation, but to the awakened mind, it is liberation. And once you taste the freedom of not needing anyone's approval, of no longer pretending to be entertained when you're exhausted, you'll never want to go back. Friendship, in its purest form, should feel like breathing, natural, effortless, freeing, not like holding your breath to keep someone else comfortable. There's something sacred about growing older, not just the wrinkles on your skin, but the wisdom beneath them. They don't tell you this in your 40s, or even your 60s, but once you cross into your 70s, you begin to see the world with a vision that cuts through all the noise. And that, my friend, is the gift of clarity. Let me ask you something. How many people in your life have been there? Not when you were successful, not when you were entertaining, but when you were simply quiet? Not many, and that's okay, because clarity isn't about quantity, it's about truth. You start realizing, the loudest voices aren't always the wisest, the biggest smiles aren't always the kindest. And the people who clung to you when you were useful, aren't the same ones who show up when you're simply human. Take Evelyn, a retired schoolteacher from Michigan. For decades, she kept every friendship alive. Birthdays, Christmas cards, weekly catch-ups. She poured herself out to everyone, until one day, her body said enough. Her energy faded. Her hands trembled, she couldn't do the reaching out anymore, and guess what happened? The silence revealed the truth. The people who really loved her, they came anyway. They showed up not because she asked, but because they felt her worth, even when she had nothing left to give. Age doesn't isolate you, it illuminates who really belongs. This is the beauty of clarity. You don't need drama. You don't need explanations. The right people feel like calm oceans, not crashing waves. The gift of your 70s is this: you no longer have the energy to entertain what's fake, and that is freedom. You realize, you don't need 20 friends, you need 2 who speak your soul's language. Or maybe just 1, or maybe none at all, because you've finally befriended yourself. You stop wasting time trying to fit in, and you start living in alignment with your truth. You stop saying yes to things that drain you, and start choosing only what nourishes your spirit. You start cherishing quiet evenings, simple meals, honest conversations, and the rare souls who see the real you, even when you've said nothing at all. So if you feel like your circle is getting smaller, don't mourn it, celebrate it, because you're not losing people, you're filtering out the noise, and what remains is gold. There was a time when being alone felt like a punishment, an empty chair at the table, a quiet room after sunset, no one calling, no one visiting, just silence. But something extraordinary happens when you sit with that silence long enough. You begin to hear something you couldn't before, yourself. You realize, it was never the noise that brought you comfort, it was the stillness that brought you home, and in that stillness, you discover something the young rarely find, inner peace. Let me tell you about Mr. Han, a 78-year-old painter from Korea. He used to dread the evenings. After his wife passed, the silence of his apartment felt like a ghost. He would keep the television on just to hear another voice. But over time, he turned off the screen, he picked up a brush, and in the quiet, he rediscovered a part of himself he'd long forgotten. He learned that loneliness is just peace, misunderstood. We're raised to think we always need company, someone to talk to, someone to validate us. But what if the greatest validation isn't from others, but from knowing that you can sit alone, and still feel complete? Inner peace isn't flashy, it doesn't throw parties or send you holiday cards, but it wraps around your soul like a warm blanket, steady, calm, unshakable. You stop needing to be entertained, you stop seeking approval, you stop fearing quiet, because you've made peace your partner. And once inner peace becomes your companion, you carry it everywhere, into your morning tea, into your daily walk, into the way you breathe, observe, and simply exist. That's the real gift of growing older. You no longer need constant noise to feel alive. You no longer chase people who barely see you. You no longer define yourself by who surrounds you, but by the serenity that lives within you. You laugh when you want, cry when you need. And you finally give yourself permission to just be. So if you find yourself alone at 70, 75, even 90, don't see it as a failure, see it as freedom. Freedom to live without pretense, to embrace the now, to be your own best friend, because in the end, peace is not the absence of people, it is the presence of truth, and a return to yourself. Here comes a point in life, when you stop waiting for someone to rescue you, when you stop hoping others will understand the pain you never voiced, when you realize, no one knows your soul better than you do, and that's not sad, that's powerful, because when you become your own best friend, everything changes. You no longer panic when no one calls, You no longer shrink when no one listens. You stop giving others the keys to your joy. And instead, you unlock it from within. Let me tell you about Maria, an 82-year-old widow in Spain. For decades, she relied on others to make her feel seen. Her children were busy. Friends came and went. Loneliness began to sink its teeth in. But one morning, as the sunlight poured through her window, she whispered to herself, "I'm still here." That simple sentence changed her life. She began taking herself out for coffee. She danced to music from her youth. She started writing letters, not to others, but to herself. And in doing so, she discovered the one person who had never abandoned her, Maria. Self-reliance isn't about doing everything alone. It's about learning you're already enough, exactly as you are. When you become your own best friend, you forgive yourself quicker, you listen to your needs, you cheer yourself on in the mirror, even when the world is silent. You stop seeking from others what can only grow from within. Respect, trust, care, loyalty. You feed your soul the way you once fed others, and you find that the well inside you was never dry. It was just waiting for your own hands to draw from it. It's funny, isn't it? We're taught to be selfless all our lives, to give, and give, but no one teaches us how to give to ourselves, without guilt, without shame, as if we are also worthy of the love we so freely give. You are. So if no one calls today, call yourself into the present. If no one asks how you're doing, look into the mirror and ask, then really listen. When you're your own best friend, you walk lighter, you age with grace, you glow differently, because you're no longer chasing validation, you're rooted in self-respect. That's what true self-reliance is. Not isolation, not arrogance, but inner strength, quiet, grounded, unshakable. And from that foundation, you can love others more deeply. Because you're no longer loving from emptiness, but from overflow. They say that as we grow older, life becomes quieter, fewer conversations, fewer visitors, fewer distractions, but for the wise, that quiet is not empty, it is sacred, it is in silence, that the soul finally speaks. You see, for much of our younger lives, we're busy chasing money, chasing love, chasing approval. We fill our calendars, our minds, our homes, but the older we get, the more we realize, the most important things cannot be chased, they must be received, in stillness. Let me tell you about Mr. Roy, 86 years old, once a brilliant architect. He spent decades building cities, filling skylines, but in retirement, he moved to a small village cabin, no internet, no distractions. At first, he panicked, the silence roared, his ego screamed, but then something shifted. He began to hear the wind, he noticed how the sun warmed the wood floors differently each hour. He spoke to the trees and felt them listen. He said, "I built towers all my life, but only now, in silence, have I begun to build my soul." This is what spiritual awakening feels like, not fire, not lightning, but a quiet unfolding. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of God, of truth, of that deep inner knowing we've ignored for far too long. In your younger days, being alone might have felt like abandonment, but now, it's an invitation to meet the one person you've never truly spent time with. Your own spirit. You start to see life differently. You stop measuring your worth by how many people text you. You begin to sense that every breath is a gift, that time is not to be filled, but to be felt. You begin to speak less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you've learned that most things aren't worth the noise. You pray differently, not always with words, sometimes just by sitting under the sky, and letting the silence be your chapel. This is where meaning lives, not in the loud applause of others, not in the busyness of calendars, but in the quiet moments, when your heart beats in harmony with the universe, and you finally understand that you were never alone. You were always part of something far greater. Aging is not just a physical journey, it is a sacred pilgrimage inward, and in that sacred stillness, you find a strength that no friend, no partner, no crowd could ever give you. You find purpose without performance, peace without permission, and a love that comes not from being wanted, but from being whole. And so, here we are, the final chapter of this journey, but it's not an ending, it's a beginning. You see, the truth we've uncovered through all of this is simple, yet profound. You are enough, more than enough, beyond the need for a crowded calendar, beyond the pressure to seek validation from others, beyond the idea that friendship or company are the ultimate measure of worth. As you've seen through every story, every lesson shared, the most fulfilling life you can live is the one within you. It's the life where you stop waiting for others to fill your cup, because you've learned to drink deeply from your own. The world tells us that loneliness is something to be feared, that friendship is the highest form of connection, but as we age, we discover something far more powerful, the ability to stand alone and still be surrounded by meaning, purpose, and joy. Think of Martha, a 72-year-old grandmother who embraced this truth. Her children are busy, her friends have passed, but she has never felt more alive. She found a purpose in herself, learning new languages, creating art, traveling solo. The world became her canvas, and she painted it with her own hands. And just like Martha, you too can discover that your life is yours to create, not defined by the company you keep, but by the peace, joy, and meaning you find within. There's a certain freedom in letting go of the need to fit in. There's a quiet power in standing alone. When you live fully within yourself, you start to see more clearly, and you hear the whispers of your own soul, those whispers that say, you've always had everything you needed, you are not incomplete, you are not lonely, you are whole. And when you live fully in your own presence, you will attract people who resonate with your light, not because you need them, but because you've learned to shine on your own. So, how do we move forward from here? What do we do with the wisdom we've gathered? The first step is simple: embrace the silence. Don't fear it. Don't fill it with distractions. Sit with yourself and allow the stillness to teach you. Next, cultivate your independence. Take pride in your ability to be your own best friend. Create your own happiness. Build your own life. And when you do, the world will take notice. And finally, live fully, live with purpose. Live with passion. Don't wait for permission from others to be who you are, to go where you want, to do what excites you, because you're not defined by the number of friends you have, the size of your family, or the applause of the world. You are defined by the life you create for yourself, and how fully you embrace the gift of being you. So now, if you're feeling inspired, if you found something valuable in this journey, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and join the conversation. This is just the beginning. Together, we'll continue exploring the path to living a life of depth, wisdom, and meaning. No matter your age, leave a comment below and tell us, what is one way you're embracing independence today? Remember, it's never too late to live fully. You are already enough.